Good day to you all. It is really cold, really cold. So I did a little bit of filming yesterday with my phone just to give you a kind of update on where things are, and it is so dark in here at the moment. Honestly, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and it's so dark everywhere. It hasn't snowed, it doesn't snow here, we're in Hampshire, you don't get snow. That would be too much fun. I had the go ahead yesterday from Mr. M to continue with the work. This has fallen into good hands, this car. This is nice. It's nice to see a BX go this way because they're worth a lot more than they were 5 years ago, but they're still worth relatively little. And people don't tend to put money into, not down on the heels ones, because in many ways this is quite a good car, but you know, they would buy a mint one and then just keep it mint. You don't get many people dipping around in their pocket to make them mint, to take one that is down on its luck. So yeah, I've taken the heat shield off, the gear linkage is off, I've ordered 13mm ball and socket joints. These are 10mm, so I need 13mm. Turns out quite a simple size, quite a regular thing, it's not a problem. So we've got some of them coming. I have to take the exhaust off to sort out this mess. Oh wow. I think that may be past its best. To get that off, I've got to cut it off up there because Muppet, whoever that is, has put an M8 bolt, or 2 M8 bolts in place of the special ones, which means you can't get on the top of them, and now the threads have rusted, you've got no way of even snapping them. So they've got to be cut off. So I made a start this morning in removing what I need to remove here, and in doing so found that it actually needs more parts again. So we've removed wishbones, and if you've watched my video the other day about Citroen brakes, you'd have seen, well, me describing Citroen brakes, and there is a BX wishbone, and I shall show you that in its stud configuration, which I mentioned in the video. So we've taken the wishbone off, we've taken the front discs and pads. I mean, I've realised I've forgotten to tell him about those. I might have some of them actually. I mean, they're okay. Let's move this light. There we go. Yeah, so, I mean, it's alright. It could be used again, but I reckon he'll probably just opt to change this because he's not cutting corners with it, which is strange for someone with a BX. Saying like, I want it to be as good as it can be, so if it needs doing within reason, do it. You know, if I turn around and say, oh, it needs £2,000 spending on this bracket, he'd probably say, no. But discs and pads, I imagine he'd be up for. I haven't confirmed. Got new track rod ends coming. Yeah, so I had that. Yeah, so I took the wishbones off earlier on, and the track rod ends, and the inner rack end joints, if you like, the inner rack joints, the little swivelly ball joint ones, both of them have got playing, great. The anti-roll bar drop links, they're floppy. The lower ball joints, they're floppy. Yeah, so it's just, it's an ongoing thing. So there's a lot of old worn out parts on this, so it's fine. So the now other thing I'm going to do is try and get the rack out, because the problem you've got is the gear linkage, the steering rack, has got a pivot on the top of it that the gear linkage goes to brilliantly. Yeah, so I've taken the outer track rod ends off. I've got to disconnect the steering column. Obviously there's some hydraulics to disconnect. There's a couple of big bolts up here. Yeah, it's only 2 bolts hold the rack in. It's just everything else connected to it. It's a bit of a time consuming one. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with that now and get the rack out. And yeah, I'll get the wishbones out. Wow, the studs. You got. I'll show you the stud. I'll show you the stud. You've got the wishbones mounted at an angle, like I said in my brakes explanation video. You have to watch that if you want, well, an idea of what I'm talking about, basically. So this is a stud, and the wishbone is mounted up here, thus. And this stud goes through the middle of it, so there's like a boss in the subframe that stud passes through. So it's kind of, it sits at like that. Yeah, so it sits that angle. It's higher at the back than it is at the front by quite a bit. But that stud passes through the subframe, and on that side it came out fine, and on that side it was rusted in and took 45 minutes to remove. And that is why working on cars is a mugs game, and you shouldn't do it. Right, I'm hoping not to have to drop the subframe at all. That would be a pain. But one of the advantages I have got is that when I've got the rack out, it'll make it easier to change the fuel hoses as well. They need doing. So Tomato's getting a bit of a going through at the moment. It has to be said. Right. There has been an ongoing problem with the Tomato, and one of the things I thought I was going to have to address while it was here was removing this steering column, because there seems to be a bearing out. Oh, and the steering's a bit stiff. No, it's not a bearing. We've had a result. This here is called a Hardy disc, although it's basically a rubber steering coupling. And this is a heat shield. And I can't do it because I can't move it myself from here. But the rubber disc is rubbing on the heat shield because the heat shield is bent. So if I do this, and well, that's a strong heat shield. Well, I've got to take the heat shield off anyway. So, but yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, that's one job done. They're not all going to be like that, I don't think. But
2 hours later.
This is a horrible job. Yeah, trying to remove the steering rack, or power steering rack, on a BX 16 valve, when you cannot remove the exhaust first, and therefore the heat shield that covers the pinion valve, like up there. Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, it's doable. It's a bit like trying to carve a turkey while it's still in the oven. You can do it, but you're doing it like, you know, opening your mail while it's still in the letterbox. It's that kind of thing. So now I've got to do, I'm going to try and undo the 2 bolts that hold the rack in, here and here. And hopefully that'll give me enough space to get to the steering coupling. And when I've undone that, I think it will come out. But I don't know for sure because life. But yeah, all the gear linkages are disconnected. That took an age to get those off. So that's off. There's a return here for the power steering ram, which needs pulling out. I was just going to pull it out then all cockily and go, yeah, that needs pulling out like that. But it didn't come out, so yeah. Oh god, it's just horrible job. Mucky, dirty, and you've got this. I've had to have this pipe hanging out. Look, this is one of the pipes that went to the pinion valve. Here, they've got this coil in them to allow them to rotate and spring. But I think that pipe's looking a little bit substandard, so I might have to change that. But it's just doing it all backwards. You just normally take this off. When you take that off, you can get around the other side of it. You can take the heat shield off. I'd have the pipes off in no time at all. But yeah, it's just horrible. I might have a cup of tea first. On the top of this one? Don't know, can't feel it because the heat shield's in the way. You can't get out of the way because the exhaust's in the way. You can't get the exhaust out of the way because some idiot put the wrong bolts in it. The stupid thing is, right, you can buy those bolts. The proper fittings, you can buy them. They use them up until, like, I don't know if they still use them now, but they use them up until C5? C4 definitely had them. There was no need. It's just because someone was being tight ass. Or just out to stitch future Richard. Yeah, that's what you're dealing with. That's the nut there. I can't get my hand up there, of course. And there's another one on the other side. Yay! It's now 6 o'clock PM, and yeah, I started this at about 3. The last update probably came at about 4:45. I still haven't had that cup of tea. I swear to God. Anyway, it's been fighting like hell. 3 hours, and the rack is still in the car. Oh, but the book time's only 1.5. This is why mechanics get the ump. But I'm hoping it's now loose enough to come out. The problem I've got is the heat shield is still in the way. Of course, because I couldn't get it out because some idiot. One of my lights has died, run out of battery, and it's so dark in there anyway. The heat shield is now stuck. Oh, there we go. Oh, I think it's the heat shield out. Oh yeah, you can see. You better see it. Here. No, too dark. Ah, there you go, that shiny bit. That's where the coupling was rubbing it, making the squeak. This is where I find that I can't get the rack out with the exhaust still in. And to be fair, that is entirely possible. I can get to the fixings now. I'll have to wrap that up and cut them off. But that'll be a job for tomorrow because I've had enough. That's horrible. 3 hours. It's not even off. Well, it is off, but it's not out. Just because, there we go. You can see them more clearly. Yeah. Then that M8 bolt totally rusted up with the spring above it. And on that side they've got a lock nut brilliantly. And neither of them want to know, so they're going to have to be cut. Screw you guys, I'm going home. It's the next day. Again. I am ready. Why do that? It's gonna fall on my head, isn't it? Right. Hold on, cooler. Try again. Right. Do not go through suspension. Swear words. There you go. All this work for that. All this bloody work. Get this one off without having it all come pinging down and... Oh. I've still got the gloves on underneath, the nitrile one. Man, how cold is this? ice forming on it. It's never a good sign. Come on. There we go. The moment of truth. The thing you've all been waiting for. Literally the thing that some of you have been waiting for. Release the cable tie. Ah, you horrible turd! Do you want to know two really stupid things? So, that was one of the bolts that was fitted in the exhaust manifold, which weirdly looks like a fine thread. But that's not the best bit. So this is a brand new version of a cup. There is one of these either side on the manifold, and then the proper bolt has like a kind of conical, but is it conical? No, it's not conical because it's curved as well. Convex? Whatever. It's got a shoulder on it and it sits in here and pokes out the top. This is the bolt that was fitted. Two brilliant things. So the first mastermind, as you can see, and in fact this cone here is shallower than the ones that are on there. But that's how much you get poking out the top of it. Not enough to get anything on. And the access to get to it, it's not like you can wedge something in there or... Well, I mean, if the bolt wasn't completely rusted, you might have been able to wedge something in it to get the nut undone, but it was just rust. The proper fixings they use, although they're not stainless or anything like that, they are quite high quality steel normally, and they do tend to last a bit longer. But the other brilliant thing, there's your conical insert, there's your bolt, but whoever it was, put a spring washer. A spring washer. It's just... For those who don't know spring washers, it would not work at all in that. I mean, the fact that they've tried is concerning. There's the void that the manifold, or the downpipe, once occupied. And you can see up there, there's the funky manifold. Look at that! 4 branches in the middle, 8 branches to start with, into 2 and then into 1. That manifold looks like it's in quite good condition, which is reassuring. I can't put the light on this and show you at the same time, but this divider here quite often splits and that one hasn't, so that's good. So yeah, that is, you can just see, you can see all the pipes meeting together there. That is actually stainless. Well, the tubes are stainless, the base plate isn't. And that coolant pipe don't look too clever up there, does it? And then the downpipe is actually a cheap one because you can. There's the 2 sections of semicircular section I was talking about. So the divider carries on down to here. On the genuine ones, it carries on a little bit further. On the really cheap rubbish, it's a bit less. On the really cheap rubbish, they don't have the divider at all. It's just a bent piece of pipe. So yes, I need to take that hockey stick, is what they call it, off the back of that. I'm going to reuse that. I know it doesn't look clever, but it's actually not in bad condition, and like, if you can save money, you do. Right, I'll come back to this. I'll get the steering rack out now.